Hey everybody, what's going on? I just totally skipped over this story dealing with the the shooter being Elias Rodriguez in Washington, where he shot someone, two people, a couple maybe, in the university, um, just out of cold blood for the Free Palestine thing. And the whole reason why I wrote it off was I thought it was a guy who was, a student. He looked quite young, and then you know, he was also when I looked at him and I saw his appearance, I thought he was Middle Eastern or of the Islamic faith. But I was totally wrong about this, and this is going back to my winners and losers video. If anybody wants to go watch them to catch up on the extended universe of Azure and all the news reportings that I've been doing lately. And I had to double back and talk on this topic because I just wrote this kid off as yeah, this dumb incel, which he is. He very much is an incel, but he's way worse. So this guy is an activist, you know, paper bag, right? So someone's just gonna blow him up and he's just gonna puff out his chest, basically. But he doesn't really stand for anything individually. You look at him and you don't see an adult. That's why, I just wanted to ignore it because I thought it was just a young person problem. This young guy, getting, absorbed in all this media frenzy and all these young girls his age, you know, protesting free Palestine, but that's not at all what's happening. Instead, it's a 30-year-old. I don't know what he does. He researches for Black history and all this activist bullshit that just it's been cooking in America for years, man. This anti-white sentiment, anti-American sentiment is very strongly established, and it'll find every single fork in the road to take avenue on. So, in the case of this guy, he is very much for the anti-governmental, anti-establishment. I really don't understand this about people, and maybe because I grew up around Jewish people, because I kind of understand them a little bit better than most. I don't really necessarily want to fight for them and die for them and stuff, right? But I also know at the same time that if we ignore what happens to them, it's just gonna happen to all of us, and we're just gonna be like, well, I wish I stuck up for the Jews when I had the chance. I wish I, we would have stood stronger together, all that kind of stuff, and it goes back to the whole Kanye West, embellishing this whole hatred against Jewish people. Literally comes out with a Nazi propagandist video that is very very much anti-Semitic, and this is it wouldn't he wouldn't actually be able to come out with that song had it not have been for the whole Palestine conflict, because it is the worst type of optics when it comes to fighting a war. You're fighting a war against a bunch of dumbasses who are inbred. They'll kill each other over food. They'll rape little kids. They'll use kids as human shields. These people have no shame. They have no honor. They have no dignity. They have nothing. They're just absolute utter garbage. And everybody keeps sticking up for them and saying that, oh, we want to be on the right side of history. Well, tell me something. When they write about this in history books, right? All these people who say the right side of history, what do you think they're gonna say about you? They're gonna say you're a fucking psychopath that allowed this kind of thing to happen and tried to use propaganda to diminish just how impactful like that kind of rhetoric is, just constantly over and over again. Jewish people are genociding the Palestinians. I'm like, what do you mean? They just want the hostages back. How long has it been, and will they ever get them back? That's the sad truth, is that nobody really wants to admit that if you're with the Palestinians, you're on the wrong side of history. And all those people like Pedro Pascal, Bryan Cranston, pretty much like most of the Hollywood like, bullshitters and stuff, like people who have, you know, use method acting as a way of like hiding their, maybe, hardcore drug problem, mental dispositions, whatever, right? And it's so blatantly obvious at this point because you can't just like how like actors you can kind of tell when they're acting, like you just can't realistically like portray this kind of outrage over and over again. Like it's so unrealistic. Like case in point, um, Robert De Niro. So I don't really know the history on this guy, but I'm pretty sure he has like ties to New York and stuff. And New York is unfortunately like a very crime-ridden city. It's like it's a very dangerous place to live, and that kind of badness is spreading everywhere. Like they say, it's probably going to take more than like 5 to 6 years just to get rid of all of the illegal immigrants that came into the country during the Biden administration and this old like push to buy votes, right? Like the he probably was one of the most corrupt presidents that has ever run in the system ever. Like the guy's falling asleep, people are talking for him, he pardons his son, he does the Afghanistan, like, pulling out. So he takes all the American taxpayer money and like just gives it to the Taliban for absolutely no reason. And like here we are today, like, dealing with the aftermath of like just constantly saying America's the bad guy, Israel's the bad guy, white people are the bad guy. And it's going to be like this, right? Some people are going to say to themselves, well, it's not me who's involved. I'm not Jewish. I'm not white. Like, it doesn't really involve me. But you have to understand, like, you're in their country. The second they lose power and they're like, they can't, govern or they're in no position. Like, you're gonna have a situation in Canada where like the birth rate and like all that stuff is being replaced by like third world immigrants who are like committing like tons of crime, but like the government doesn't even want to talk about it. And it's even worse in the UK where they're going head over heels to like ignore all these grooming gang scandals and all this stuff. And like it's funny because I even try my best to understand people like this. Like I'll go inside of Rehab Room's channel and then like, watch his videos and I'm just like, okay, so this is what these people are like. And to be fair, he's a very distant like, case. Like they both have the same underlying problems. Like they both view women as like, an objective rather than like a person. And I found that like sometimes like guys will never develop that like understanding. Pardon me. Oh wow. Wow. See, ladies and gentlemen, you just gotta relax sometimes. Don't take things too seriously because like if I were to like analyze this guy the same way, Rehab Room and his like, channel does, he would be this guy, I think he called it neurodivergent. I think I might be that with video games. Which is like a way of saying like you're weird, but like you have a hard time like picking up social cues, you have a hard time this, you have a hard time that, yada yada yada. But like you'll also say that like he like was too I guess you can say pussy whipped for lack of a better term. So like the guy was really chasing that like thing, right? Like the guy was just gunning for these people with the intent to kill, made a manifesto, all in the vein of Luigi Mangione. But like, here's the thing with that guy. That guy has actual like grievances with his like healthcare company who fucked him over and fucked over like countless other people. Now I'm not saying that you should go out and kill people. No, obviously not. But like these healthcare companies, they pretty much get away with murder, pretty much, and we know it. The cops know it. Everybody knows it. The first responders know it. Everybody knows it. The companies are the fucking worst, right? Like they're just a step down below. In fact, you know what? I would say like tobacco companies are a step above because even though they know that they're like selling their thing, right? And I'm a smoker myself too. I mean, you know, they're not like oh, they're all bad. What am I saying? Like, oh, why am I trying to like pick favorites and shit? We're trying to like find out who's the better demon. They're all bad. I mean, I'm not saying like tobacco companies are 100% bad. Well, they are pretty bad, but it's just like sometimes, right? You just want to try to find like a little bit of reprieve. The world is just so harsh. You just have to accept. You just have to accept it, man. Okay, so this guy with his neurodivergent behavior, Elias Rodriguez, like he looks the part. Like I said, some people, especially younger people, right? I've noticed this when they get to a certain age, and then like they keep aging. Because at first I looked at him and I just like wanted to look away because I like what I mean, like, oh yeah, another one of those like Arab or whatever protesters, probably born here with his parents, coming from there, and then just like but no, the guy, oh my god, like I don't even care that like what his history is because it's not my business. Just the fact that he's not Muslim and he's like willing to do that, like kind of paints just how dangerous this world has become. Because the ignorance of like people like Hassan and like Twitch and like the whole, yeah, he's just gonna read his manifesto and then like immediately like say, oh, this sounds like a false flag. And then Hassan gets a ban for like literally a day just to bring like further, and it's like, what I think it is? If you think about it, like even Asmund was like commenting on it, Philion, oh yeah, Philion TV and Live, I think. Go subscribe to this guy. I watch his channel a lot. Fitness YouTuber who's like, yeah, he's cool. He's a legit guy, and he's been pointing out that it makes less sense for them to even like ban him for one day because it just brings more attention to, like Asmongold obviously said it too, right? But everybody's saying it, like, yeah, why would you just ban a guy for a day only to just bring him back immediately? And it just like, wait, and people are gonna be like, what did he do, right? And then there's, oh, he was just going over Elias's like manifesto and stuff. It's just like such bullshit because they know that they want to like show off their capabilities, the power that they have. Like, yo, you try doing shit like this and see how far it gets you on the right. Like you, well, obviously, like that's the weirdest shit too. Like we have to acknowledge that most of the incels, most of the like the school shooters, all these like messed up people, like most of them, like and like even though there are ones who claim to be on the right, and like I used to be a huge leftist until I just realized that like they just lie constantly and they don't really care about anybody. They just like to seem to care about people. Like the idea that they like to get to be the approachable, more moderate like opinion out of the other people who are insane crazy people. I remember this one ad in New York that Mayor Adams did, and it was like about the drinking water, about how clean it was, And then he's like, "Yeah, just gonna pour myself a glass of water." He just pours it out of like the tap, and then it cuts away to a completely different scene. He's drinking like obviously a different glass of water because he ain't drinking the water coming out of that tap, man. He ain't drinking that water. It's no good. But it's like how they try to appear and seem like, friendly, right, on the right side of history, as they would say, right? And like they're very much mentally disturbed. Like they're homosexual. They want to issue like gender reaffirming surgery to children. There's been like this huge, debate and debacle with like, the legitimacy of like genders and whatever in the UK. And you know what they're saying? They're saying J.K. Rowling is one. And I'm like, well, yeah, but so did we all. Like, this is common sense plus also like we needed women to stand up for her. Well, unfortunately, everybody because it's like whenever men would like approach this topic, we would come at it with a very heavy-handed, aggressive approach, and it always seemed disingenuous whether or not we cared about the issue and topic at hand. So having that problem solved was very much a requirement and very necessary. So like and going back to this whole story with like this guy, like he looks he looks like a man child. Like he is a man child. Like I said that like most people who are younger than me look older, but he's kind of like both the exception to the rule, but also like very much the case of being, yeah, he is. He does look older, but he also like is very immature, both mentally and physically. So if you were to look at this man, and even with his full like facial hair, like like alignment and stuff, like the oldest I would get from him is like someone like approaching 20. Look, he looks very very young. Like he looks, but then when you look closer at him, like when you see the maturity in his face and like his eyes, but like I don't know. Like, do you think a man like this would have had a woman like with him, and he would throw his life away to like free Palestine? Like for real? I don't know. I see this guy as just being yet another leftist incel that you know the democratic liberal side of history does not want to acknowledge. They want to say that it's very much a right wing case, but it's not. The incels are very much on the left. They want someone else to help them and make it easier for them. I can understand, like, when things are difficult, wanting, assistance and stuff, but the things that they're asking for is basically to circumvent natural selection so that their ego can be embellished, so that like, oh, body positivity, like people who are lazy can be like, treated, as the physical equals as people who, put in the work. Okay, and it's not so much a debate of whether or not that's right or wrong. It's more or less like how much have we considered their, sanity, their, capability of like, I guess, be like, happy with like everybody just like making concession after concession for them. Like I like to make an analogy. Like sometimes, like back in the day when I used to go jogging long distances, I made it such a habit that I literally bit off more than I could chew, and I was jogging at such long distances it was driving me insane. I don't know why I pushed myself to do it, but I'm glad I did because that means later on in life, I don't have to really try too hard to, like, put myself in that, uncomfortable position of, like, physical exhaustion constantly, like, pushing that level of, just absolute collapse. So, like, the losers on the left have militarized at this point, and the best thing to, like, I don't actually have a solution to be fair, but I'm just gonna point it out because what else can I do? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just these people, they're upset with themselves and the world, and they're gonna take it out on society. The society that has, carried them and fed them and clothed them, educated them, unfortunately. And I wish I knew what to say, but sometimes you just have to, like, speculate sometimes.